What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Adam. It is Wednesday morning. Whatever. No, it's Thursday morning. Um, this fucking slumlord has to be the biggest fucking retard in the history of landlords. He sent me a text message this morning saying that I just wanted to let you know that the rent is now 900 a month. And um, he he wanted to ask if I'd be willing to pay early. He's like, he must be hard up for some cash for something. Because he wants to. It's like 2 weeks. We're like a week and a half away from the end of the month. And I'm not paying. Oh no, I'm not only not paying early, but I'm gonna be getting the fuck out of here at the end of the month. A fucking idiot. This guy is a fucking wow. Just a reminder, you need to start paying the extra rent that I demanded. Oh, and by the way, do you think it's possible to pay the rent early? No, it's not. Even if I was going to, um, last month I paid it. Last month I had the money orders a week in advance, and I paid the rent on the first of the month. I paid the rent on the first of the month. Even though I had the money order ready. I just let it sit and waited until the first of the month to put it in his box because I'm not paying early. But he must be hard up for some cash for something. He must be. I don't know. Well, there's things I'll talk about after I'm out of here. Um, I think I know why he's hard up for money. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if this dude ends up getting his house foreclosed on, or like there might be something going on in his world that he's desperately trying to claw money out of people to, avoid not having a home anymore or something. I don't know, dude. It's so ridiculous. So I don't know how I'm going to respond to that. He'll probably come over and knock on the door at some point if I don't respond to it. Um, I don't want to tell him that I'm leaving until I absolutely, because I don't want strangers coming into this place, even though I can film them. But I don't know. I guess I'll figure out the best. I'm not going to deal with this for at least until the afternoon. Um, I don't want to tell him. I don't want to give him any kind of verbal or text confirmation to say, "Oh yeah, I'll pay on the first," because then he's gonna, like legally, then he could say, "Well, he told me he was gonna pay me." Um, so I might have to tell him that I'm leaving at the end of the month. But that's going to open me up to having people traipsing around in here when I'm not here. So I don't. I think I'm going to pray about that and see what God thinks I should do there. There are things I could do to protect my stuff. I might have to get another security camera. I might, because I've got two, but one of them is kind of eh. Um, it works, but it doesn't work. It's the Obama. Y'all know when I was homeless. If you've been watching this channel, I got me an Obama phone. One day they were handing them out like candy on the streets of Jamestown, and it was like $20 cash. And these two dudes would fill out all the paperwork, and here you go, you got your Obama phone, and it worked right out the bat. I don't really use it. In terms of making phone calls and sending texts, it does the job, but the internet connection is so throttled on it that it's almost pointless to use. T-Mobile, it runs on the T-Mobile network, and they limit the speed that you can connect to like 0.01 megabits per second or something. It's so slow. It's ridiculously slow. So you can't use it as an internet device or a hotspot. You can't use it for anything like that. It's useless, other than like in an emergency. I mean, you could check your email. You could do, I used it a few times for whatever reason. If my phone on my regular phone was dead, just to use it. I used it as a ghetto AirTag. I would keep the phone hidden in my laptop bag, and then if my laptop bag ever got nabbed or stolen or something like that, I'd at least know where it was while the phone's battery was still charged. It would be broadcasting its position to me. So that was one thing that I used the Obama phone for. And another thing, this is a handy tip if you have an old Android phone or an iPhone, an old phone that you don't use anymore. You can hook it to your Wi-Fi and you can use it as a security camera. There are specific apps, tons of apps, most of which are free to install on the phone and use it like a security camera. So the Obama phone sits there out in the open. It's there on purpose. It's out in the open on purpose so that when people are in here and they look up, it's right above the door. You can't miss it. I've seen videos of people pointing at it that I've captured while they were in here. When they were in here working on the the hot water situation. One time the landlord came in to do work on the ceiling in here, and he walked right up to it, grabbed it and pulled it down and unplugged it and set it down somewhere. I guess he didn't want but I had another camera looking at him anyway, so it didn't matter. He thought he was being crafty, but like it was kind of like his fuck you, you can't film me kind of I don't know. It was weird. That was a weird. This guy is just fucking weird. Fucking sitting here shaking me down, trying to get me to pay rent early. You know he's never gonna let go of that security deposit. Not without a fight. So I definitely have to make sure I document. This YouTube channel is a good documentation of how this place looked when I moved in, but I gotta have a witness and somebody. Hopefully I have a friend come and help me move, and then I can just when I move out, I can document what everything looks like. I don't want to talk to this guy today. about. I just don't want to answer this text yet. I gotta figure out how I want to say, how I want to respond to it. I might just respond with a okay. I don't want to say anything though that he could legally use against me to say that I agreed to all this shit when I didn't. I'm not letting him get away with this shit. I mean, I'm not because I'm leaving at the end of the month. I gotta wait for a document to show up in my mailbox, email, and then I'm good to go. I gotta book a U-Haul for the day I want to move. Oh man, but security cameras. You can use an old phone for a security camera, and it will work connected to your Wi-Fi network. I can't remember the name of the app that I'm using right now, but it's you install the app on the phone you want to use as a camera, and then you install the app on the phone that you want to use to monitor. And so the nice thing about the Obama phone is it's still active. So if the Wi-Fi were to go down, it can still send me a notification if somebody comes in here. Um, it'll still send me a notification if somebody comes in here. Now I keep getting these emails and text messages and stuff saying I have to reapply for the Obama phone program, probably due to Elon Musk, because I was originally told that it would last for at least a year, but I don't qualify for it anymore. I'm pretty sure I don't. And I don't use it, so I don't really care. It was just for 20 bucks I could have an emergency phone, and I thought, okay, fine. I thought maybe it would be handy to use for something else. Like I said, I've found ways to use the thing. But even when they shut the phone off, the when they turn it off to where, you can't call anybody or text or anything anymore. I don't know when that's going to happen. I haven't reapplied for it. So I'm assuming that they'll send me some sort of notification saying how many days I have left. I haven't seen that yet, but they'll send me up to 10 or 15 emails a day saying that you have to reapply to keep your service. But even when the service ends, I can use the thing as a security camera or some other Wi Fi enabled device. So that one's out in the open. It's obviously watching you when you're in here. But it's not always turned on. There's a problem with it where even though it's plugged into a wall, I'll get a notification saying that the battery started to drain. And the battery will just drop all the way to 0%. You have to unplug it and plug it back in for the battery to start charging again. So sometimes I get that warning and I'm not home. And I can just check in and see it'll last about 4 to 6 hours once I get the notification that the battery started to drain. It'll go about 4 to 6 hours and then it'll be at zero. So it's just they're garbage phones. They're just bad. They're terrible phones. And so what I'm assuming is that the battery that it came with is just no longer any good. And For whatever reason, even though it's plugged into a wall, it'll get to a point where it just says it's discharging the battery. Normally, when you keep a phone plugged into a wall, it'll just stay at 100% charge. But this one will, after a period of time, it's random. It'll just give me a notification saying, "Hey, your phone is no longer holding, or your phone's no longer charging, and there's nothing I can do about it if I'm not here." If I'm here, all I got to do is unplug it and plug it back in, and it goes back to charging, and it'll stay at 100%. And I can turn the camera app on and off remotely from the other phone. And I can set timers. So the days that I know I'm going to be gone, I just set a timer. And the camera turns on around the time I leave, and it turns off when I get home. If I'm home before the timer, then I can shut it off as I walk in the door. It's easy to turn on and off. So I don't have to have it watching me while I sit here all day. I can, like I said, I could turn it on and off at will. But I'm thinking maybe I can get another camera and just set it somewhere strategic so that if and when this guy is bringing people in here, there's another camera that I bookmarked that looks like a clock, and it supports Wi-Fi connections, so I could monitor it remotely. I don't know if it's like a paid service I'd have to pay for or how it works. I don't know if it has an SD card, but I could get two cameras. I could set it up so that there's multiple cameras in here. And I could do it within, like, if I'm going to tell him that I'm leaving. But just having that camera visible, the one that's out in the open, the reason why I do that is a deterrent. So if I have nothing but cameras that are hidden, let's say I catch somebody coming in here and doing something. Well, now I've got to deal with, now what do I do? Like, if somebody stole something, I've got to go get the thing back. I've got to report it to the police or whatever. I've got to go through a hassle, and I've got to, like, deal with the problem. So having one obvious camera that's out and about, easy to see, you're being recorded, that's the deterrent camera. That's the one that lets people know, hey, no matter what you do, I've already seen it. If you see this camera, then I see you. Just so you know you're being watched. And if somebody thinks they're going to be crafty and go turn the camera off or move it or turn it face down, or there's like 2 or 3 other ones watching you, so good luck. But the first one, the one out in the open, is the one that I put there on purpose. And I was thinking about hiding it, and I'm like, no, you need to leave that one out in the open, so that's the one that's going to prevent people from doing shady shit, because they're going to see it and go, oh, he's watching us. Have the hidden ones out for if he decides to disable it. So, and those hidden ones I can turn on and off at will. But I only have, well, I'm not going to say how many I have, not yet, but I think I'm going to get another one. And it sucks because I don't want to spend money on this shit. But I could get it in my hands tomorrow. And if I have to cave in and tell him that I'm moving out, I want to make sure every angle is covered in terms of this place, and that I'm going to be able to see anything that happens. If he's just gonna walk people in here, let them look at it, turn around and leave, I can handle that. But I had a feeling he was gonna do something like this before the end of the month. But the fact that he's asking me, "Hey, would you mind paying your rent early?" That's fucking hilarious. So, oh, I did pay the rent early. I paid the rent last Sunday. So I paid the rent. What was it? 4 days ago. It's already out of my bank. It's already out of my bank account. It's done. It's paid. um, Rent is paid for. I'm good for next month. Um, Good luck, asshole. Fuck, man. This place is so bad. This has been the worst. Like, nothing I have ever been through in terms of a landlord situation is even close to as scummy and bad as this place is. In every there's so I'm gonna have to, in order for me to tell you the whole story, I'm gonna have to go back and just list it all out. I'll try to make it like an hour long video or something to tell the whole story, but you guys, if you've been watching all these videos, you know most of what's going on here, but there were a few things that I've had to leave out. So I'm glad I took care of finding a new place and getting all this done last weekend. It just felt like I had to do it by the I wanted to do it by the 15th. It ended up being the 18th. So, you know, not a big deal, but I think the 15th was when that landlord with the nice garage apartment was supposed. I've never heard back from him. So, I don't the ad is still up. Wouldn't be surprised if that ad is still there for 2 more. I wouldn't be surprised if that guy leaves that place vacant for 3 months trying to find somebody to move in. Um, I have a feeling I know why he didn't let anybody. I have a feeling he's looking for one specific tenant, and I guess I can say it. He's Spanish, as a lot of people are around here. I'm going to assume that he's an American citizen, and he speaks. His English is just fine. He doesn't. You wouldn't necessarily know he's Spanish by talking to him on the phone, so it's not like he's not. I'm sure he speaks perfect Spanish. I'm 100% convinced he's looking for a Spanish tenant. A Spanish tenant that has a good job, has good references, whatever. He's basically trying to act like he's an apartment complex owner, making people jump through a bunch of hoops and all that stuff to get an apartment. And but I'm 100% convinced that he's looking for a Spanish tenant. But on top of the Spanish part, he's looking for someone who has the right job and the right credentials or whatever to make him feel as though he's not going to have any problems. But you might say, "Oh, that's a racist thing to." No, that's a true thing to say. I lived in an apartment once where the landlord thanked me for not being black. Okay, this stuff happens. I'm not saying that it's right, or I'm not saying that it's right. In fact, it's downright illegal to discriminate against people's age, religion, sex, skin color, nationality, all of that stuff. That you could, I mean, this guy here, this slumlord that I'm renting from, in his ads on Craigslist, he puts this big thing about I don't speak Spanish and I won't respond to any inquiries that are written in Spanish. And then when he's got his Home Depot parking lot contractors, quote unquote, working here, he speaks nothing but Spanish. Da 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 da. He may as well be wearing a fucking sombrero when he's out there talking to them because he speaks perfect Spanish. So he's discriminating against, he doesn't want anybody speaking Spanish because he doesn't trust Mexicans. And he doesn't want to rent to a Mexican or something like that. He's putting that right in his ad when he's listing this tiny house on Craigslist. So anyway, I think that's what's going on at the other place. I think the other guy wants someone Spanish to move in, but he also wants whoever it is to have a good job or whatever. And I could be totally off base there, but all I'm saying is I've seen lots and lots of landlords just openly discriminating against who they want to move in and who they don't want to move in based on skin color, based on ethnic backgrounds. To say that that's not real would be a load of horse shit, because that happens all the time. All the time. And it doesn't matter what you are, what color you are. You can be discriminated against just because of the color of your skin. Especially when you're looking for an apartment from a private owner. If you don't think that they're discriminating, think again. They all are. They just have to be careful not to say it out loud. Because if this dumb slumlord here, he's putting it right in his ads on Craigslist. I'm not going to rent to a Mexican. I mean, he may as well just put that in the ad, because he's basically said that in the ad. The only thing they can legally discriminate against you for would be things like bad credit, evictions in your past, and a criminal record. But I'll tell you what, that landlord, the one that told me she was glad I'm not black, karma doesn't forget your address. So she told me that right after I moved in. She's like, thank God you came along, because I would have had to rent this place out to one of those spades. Shit, that's how old this fucking lady was. I had to think about it for a minute. I'm like, what are you even... Spades? What the fuck are you even... Holy shit, that's like some 1950s racism right there. Holy fuck, that's crazy. Well, anyway, it was a split duplex. I was on the top, somebody else was on the bottom. It was a nice place. But the guy on the bottom, he was living there with his wife when I moved in. But like 2 months into that, his wife wasn't there anymore. He hung a Confederate flag in the front window of the house. Like, just filled the window with a big old Confederate flag. And that was kind of weird, because I live here too. So now I'm coming home to this. Some friends of mine met, because the guy was friendly enough that he invited me over to his place to hang out once or twice, and I think he came up to my place once or twice, and some of my friends met him, and a couple of my friends, especially the girls, were like, "That dude's fucking nuts." Well, he was the one who got into the beef with the landlord and rigged the front door of the place so that if the landlord came when he wasn't home, he had a BB gun pointed at the door, like a pellet gun, with a fucking, it was like a Bugs Bunny cartoon. There was a piece of string tied to the fucking doorknob going up around a bunch of hooks and fucking pulleys and shit, and when she opened the door she got shot with a pellet gun. But she didn't get hit. But the thing grazed her. And because I guess she did try to come in once when he wasn't there. And because because he ran up the water bill. So the water bill was in the landlord's name, and it was one bill for the whole building, so she would split it between the tenants. Pretty much just split it in half. And I'm like, so that's a little bit shady when landlords try to do that shit. There's rules about that, there's laws about that from what I remember. In order for them to do that, if you're going to pay the utilities, even if it's in the landlord's name, the bill has to be metered for each unit. Otherwise, it has to be included in the rent, legally speaking. But we all know landlords don't follow the fucking law. So I'm going to be dealing with that at the new place for the electric bill. I just found that out. I thought the electric bill was going to be in my name. And now I'm just find out that it's split amongst multiple people. And I'll get a bill at the end of the month. Or he'll tell me what I owe. And so that's got me a little nervous. So that could either be no problem. You can't just assume off the bat that that's going to be a problem. But that could become an issue. So what am I going to say? So anyway, that's what it was. There was a water bill split between the two units. She would just tell you what to pay. She'd also give you a copy of the bill if you wanted it. He decided to run all the water for a month. Like, he literally turned on the bathtub, the sinks. He just, turned on all the water in the apartment and let it run for an entire month. Racked up an outrageously huge bill. And so she kicked him out. But and then she went and had the building metered separately, and then had the two tenants, had us both get the water put in our names. So the next guy who moves in downstairs, telling you she's getting her karma. What would have been funny is that what if she had a black tenant move in downstairs, and he was a professional and maybe not a doctor, but because a doctor wouldn't be living in a place like that. But what if he was a sound professional, quiet, kept to himself, kept the yard mowed, kept the place clean, and paid rent on time and never caused her a problem. But instead she rented out to this other guy. And at first he moved in, he seemed normal. But all of a sudden, it was within the first few days of him being there, he starts bringing over trash. Hillbilly trash. like rusty old bicycle parts, car parts, just truckloads full of like junk. And I mean junk, like scrap metal junk. And he starts making a pile in the backyard. But the backyard is visible from the street, the way that it's shaped and everything. And he just starts, every day, he starts bringing home truckloads, pickup truck loads, with the bed full of junk. And I mean, he spent days and hours of his life transporting all of this fucking junk from somewhere. And he filled the entire backyard. He turned the entire fucking backyard into a landfill, to the point where I was like, what in the fuck is this? Because this is my place too. And now I've got this fucking dude with this hillbilly garbage dump in the backyard. And it's like literally the entire fucking backyard turned into a landfill of this guy's junk and scrap metal and whatnot. Old washing machines and just goofy ass shit. It was like he lived in a fucking trailer park with a front yard full of broken down cars, and he brought them all over to this place and threw them in the backyard. I'm not kidding. It was the entire fucking backyard. The landlords start coming over and they're like, what the fuck is going on? And they got mad. The woman and her husband came over. I could hear them screaming and yelling at him. The whole neighborhood could hear them screaming and yelling at him. What the fuck is this fucking bullshit? You can't fucking do this, yada yada, this, that, and the other thing. They kicked him out. Eventually, they kicked the guy out. Like, within a month or two, he was gone. He packed up his landfill and took it with him, too. That was crazy. That was fucking insane. But they were like, look what he did. And they took me into the apartment. In the span of about a month and a half to 2 months, he completely trashed this apartment downstairs. It was bad. It was like the whole living room floor it was like he poured gallons of motor oil, black used motor oil, all over the floor. Like it looked like he just poured, like it looked like he did an oil change, took the however many gallons of oil, the black used motor oil, dumped it all over the living room floor, and then got naked and rolled around and rubbed it into the fucking carpet. I'm not kidding. It was that crazy. He took the refrigerator from the kitchen and dragged it into the living room and plugged it in on like the opposite side of the living room. And there were all these marks on the floor and gouges on the floor from dragging it all the way from the kitchen to the other side. The carpet was all ripped up. There was shit all over the walls, holes in the fucking walls. It was fucking like, whoa. Like thousands of dollars of damage to this apartment in the span of like, they had him out of there in 2 months. And so this is 2 batshit crazy tenants in a row. One right after the next. And I had been living there for the guy with the Confederate flag whose wife divorced him, and he went fucking batshit crazy and ran the water for a month. Like, he was probably there, I would say, 6 months from when I moved in to, it was probably 6 months later that he moved out. Maybe maybe longer than that. He was there for a while. And the other guy, the landfill guy, was there for 2 months. Straight up. He came and he was gone. They kicked him right the fuck out. But in the 2 months, I saw the place. Because when the one guy moved out, they asked me if I was interested in taking over that apartment instead, and I don't remember why, and I wasn't, but I think the rent was cheaper or something. They were like, you want to take a look at it? And I was like, okay, fine, and I took a tour of it, and well, once again, it wasn't a bad place. It was different. It was In some ways, it was cooler than the place I lived in upstairs, but I was happy. I didn't want to move. But I looked at the place when the guy moved out. I got to see the basement. I got to see how the whole house is structured. For me, it was one of these things that I was kind of curious as to whether I could buy the place at the time. Like, I was wondering if the owner would be willing to sell the place and if I could get a mortgage on it somehow, even though I wasn't in good financial shape then. But I thought, wouldn't it be nice to have a duplex that I can rent half of it out to be self-sufficient and pay my, get them, keep the mortgage paid and keep the utilities paid and whatnot. And then at some point when I start making more money, take over the whole place and make it my house. Basically, I'd have to cut a hole in a wall, a couple of different walls to turn it into one continuous home. And that would be a really nice home, if you could have turned that into one house that you live in your family. That would be awesome. There would be so much that would have been freaking cool. You could turn that into a really awesome house if you could combine the two units into one house. And so, but I was glad to be able to see both units because it kind of put that in my head in terms of just thinking about what would it be like if you turned this into one place that you live and it's your place and it's not a duplex anymore. Um, um, so anyway, yeah, this crazy psycho. And then the place ended up vacant again. And I think some normal people moved in finally, but it was right around the time that I was leaving. And I didn't even, I think it was a couple, like a couple moved in. Um, but it was like I was only there for a couple of months before I moved out. And I may have met them. I may have said, oh, hi, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. But they were quiet. I was quiet. We didn't hang out with each other. The only downside to that place was it had a really, really beautiful back patio. This big porch overlooking these woods behind the place. And it was a sweet patio. It was really, really nice. But both apartment units had entrance to the patio. So it was a shared patio. Like I could go down a set of stairs and out a back door onto the patio. And the other apartment had a door to the patio right next to my door. And so it was like, At that point, it was like I didn't really go back there because you're not going to have your privacy. I mean, if a friend of mine moved into the other apartment, then it would be a really cool thing to have we'd have some really fun times out on the back patio. But you have to get along with your neighbors if you're doing something like that. And so I just never used it. I would go out there from time to time and just check out the view or hang out for a minute, but I didn't even have so much as furniture out on the back patio there. It just, it wasn't a part of, I didn't consider it to be part of my apartment just because I don't want to share. And especially with the lunatics that were living there before. And the new people were quiet, and I think they felt the same way about the patio. They didn't go out and use it either. Um, so that was the drawback to it. You could have put a divider wall right down the middle of that back patio in between the two doors and split the patio between the two places and so that per each tenant would have a private little patio out back. But you know, it is what it is. It's not. I lived there for a year. It was fine. It was a nice place. I didn't have any issues. I personally didn't have any issues with the owners or any even even with the whole utility bill thing, everything was fine. I never had any complaints. Everything was fine. They fixed things when they broke. They were fine people. I saw how horrible those two people could be, the husband and this wife. The wife was the owner of the building. The husband would just come over every now and then when she wanted someone else to scream and yell along with her. Like, they would monitor the yard. They wanted the yard mowed once a week. They had a lawnmower, weed whacker, all that stuff in the garage. And they wanted it done once a week, and they said that each tenant has to take turns. So each tenant has to do it. It's in the lease. Every 2 weeks, you have to mow the lawn. So I would mow the lawn, and then the tenant downstairs. Now, before the psycho with the landfill showed up, the tenant downstairs and I agreed we would alternate I would mow the lawn, and then 2 weeks later he'd mow the lawn, and then 2 weeks later I'd mow the lawn. So we're only doing it once a month. And that they stayed away. They didn't care. In the middle of summer, if we had like a really bad, like, 2 weeks is hit or miss on a lawn sometimes in the spring and summer. 2 weeks, it might actually get too tall. But anyway, the guy moved in downstairs and I mowed the yard. And then 3 weeks went by and it didn't get mowed. That woman, the owner, and her husband showed up and they were standing out in front of the house screaming at the top of their lungs, "You fucking people gotta mow your fucking lawn." Like, they were like, it was crazy. They could have knocked on the door and just had a talk with us. But then, after they got done screaming and yelling out in the yard for the whole neighborhood to hear, maybe they were just putting on a show for the neighbors to see, they came and knocked on my door, and they were extremely friendly to me. They're like, "Yeah, we know that you take care of the place, and we know that you do the lawn. It's his turn to do the lawn, I guess, right?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, I'm like, "I'll do it on the weeks that I'm supposed to. But if he doesn't do it, then I'm not gonna take over for him." And so they're like, "Okay." So I went and mowed the lawn because it had been a few weeks. And I figured, why not? It's not a big deal. It didn't take that long to do. It was just, you know, it's like I got other things to do, but I went and did it. And, but that guy, the guy with the landfill, never mowed the yard once. I would just let it grow and piss them off. And then they would come over and start screaming and yelling at him because they knew that it wasn't me. I think some of that drama is why the old guy used to stare at the place from across the street and just stand there staring at the place all day long, like he was watching for something to happen. Once again, I'm pretty sure that on the entire street, that was the only place that was rented. All the other houses were homes. People owned them. People's families. There were a lot of families. There were a lot of kids. There were a lot of kids waiting for the school buses in the mornings and stuff like that in the neighborhood. So it was like, it's one of those neighborhoods. And so they're like, that's the problem house in the neighborhood because people are renting this duplex and maybe there's always drama there. Maybe before I moved in, there was a lot of drama and a lot of bullshit and a lot of fucked up crazy shit going on there. And so, like, maybe people in the neighborhood are constantly watching this place because you never know what's going to happen there. Maybe that's the house that the cops are always showing up to in the middle of the night and shit like that. I don't know. I don't know what happened there before I left, or I don't know what happened in there before I moved in. I don't know what happened there after I left. I've drove by the place, a number of times in my life. After I lived there, I'd point it out and be like, "Oh yeah, I used to live there," and because it was on a street that it was a street that you would take to get from point A to B at times, and I lived in a neighborhood that wasn't too far from there before I moved out to Amish country, so it wasn't it wasn't uncommon to once in a while drive by the old place and check. Oh, look at that! That's where I used to live, and just kind of have memories of it. Um, but I don't know. I wasn't even going to do a video this morning, but then when I got that text message from the Slumlord asking me if I'd pay the rent early, that cracked me up because I did pay the rent early. I paid the rent 2 weeks early. I just didn't pay it to you. So, peace out.